As we head into Memorial Day, we end tonight with a reminder of what the holiday is all about. Steve Hartman has a soldier's story on the road.
There are 58,315 names on the Vietnam Veterans Memorial. And this is the story of why there's not one more. A story about a soldier who came as close to dying as any man alive.
I've never heard a story like this.
No.
It's the kind of thing nightmares are made of.
Our blessings.
John Colone's blessing of a nightmare began on February 19, 1968. His Army Airborne platoon was on patrol near the Kai River when he and his men came under intense enemy fire.
All hell broke loose.
John was shot 4 times.
I heard guys say I was dead. Colone is dead, Colone's dead, leave him alone.
You heard people saying that?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I was put in a body bag, toe tagged, and taken to the morgue.
He came in as a DOA.
Lieutenant Curtis Washington was an officer at the battalion aid station and worked at the morgue. It was a job he took so seriously that just to make sure he never sent a live soldier home in a box, on his own, he used to open up each body bag and take a pen to the feet.
So what I would do, this is his foot. I go.
He was testing the plantar reflex.
I do it twice. And I did that. And he went, "Ugh!" And I did it again. "Ugh!" And I said, wow.
And that is how John Colone came back from the dead, which John says is a mixed blessing.
He lost his life, he lost his life, he lost his life, he lost his life.
8 soldiers, about a third of his platoon, died that day.
I still wonder why me.
Even today you keep asking that?
Absolutely. Why did you survive?
It is a hopelessly rhetorical question. But as we walk through the cemetery where he would have been buried, John shared what may be part of the reason.
So that's when I thought, let's do something.
A few years ago, he started sending flowers on Memorial Day to the graves of all the men who died in that battle. Later, he expanded to everyone who died in his battalion during the whole war, more than $8,000 worth of flowers for 160 graves. And now he's calling on you to join him to adopt a veteran's grave on Memorial Day.
One day a year we're asking somebody to do something.
To clean it up and lay some flowers so that eventually every Vietnam veteran can be rightfully remembered.
I hope I'm around here to witness that. Maybe that'll answer that question, why.
Certainly, something to live for. Steve Hartman, on the road in Pinckney, Michigan.
And that's the CBS Evening News.
Wes says he's got the greatest job in the world, and I stand here in front of you and saying, I got to go to hell every day and go through hell. So anyway, I thought I'd start with just a little bit about myself and things, and then how things ended up. And it was many years before I actually knew I was in a body bag. So we'll tell you the whole story, okay? I was one of these kids, that went to Pinckney schools and everything. I think I was president of my class all 4 years and captain of a lot of the sports. And I think that's the only thing. And my 1.6 grade average got me through high school. So tried college for a while. I was working at General Motors, working as a apprenticeship as a pipe fitter, and trying to go to college, and got called in one day and said, it was Cleary College, we got to do something about your grades. You're holding a C average. And I said, well, that's better than I did in high school. Anyway, they wanted something to prove that I was going to raise my grades, and I tried to explain I'm going to school also at General Motors and learning things and stuff. And I said, I'm doing the best I can. And he said, that's good enough. We want to know what you're going to do. And I stood right up and turned around and dropped my pants and was kicked out of school. So went down the next day and asked to be drafted. Said I wasn't going to go for 3 years because I just got a letter from the insurance company. We still going? Or from my insurance guy, and my insurance, they were canceling the insurance on my car because I 28 points on my driving record. And I figured, well, you know, you're brand new. Well, you gritted it. You know, did you do the same? Oh, no? All righty. You know, your driving record's clean after 2 years. Why go 3 years? So that was why right? So I ended up just asking to be drafted. And was drafted on, I always remember this date. I got my letter to be drafted saying I was going to go on the 10th of June. The letter was postmarked from the Livingston County Draft Board. It was dated the 6th day, 6th month of 66. So I'm going, well, maybe I was meant for hell, so, and I still have it. Anyway, so I went in the Army, and I found out I really enjoyed it. I was a kind of a squad leader in basic training, and after I was always the one responsible for the guys that couldn't run so good during the day. I had to take them out at 5 and run some more. After basic training, I thought I was going home, but I was asked to go to leadership school, and did that. And I was the only private in my unit or in that class. Everybody else was, you know, pretty much all sergeants, but I was given the honor as the honor graduate. And I was so nervous and scared. This colonel came up. I had to present the class, all present and accounted for, but I said all pregnant and accounted for. So anyway, so I went through basic, and I volunteered for jump school, and just they paid $55 a month. I was getting $60 for being a private, or $63, I think, a month, and $55 meant a lot back then. So that's why I decided to go airborne. But anyway, finished jump school, things like that. Was sent to the 101st Airborne. I was with the 501st, I think, for quite a while. Then they had you had to volunteer and be questioned and stuff to be part of the 3rd of the 506. It was decommissioned in 46 and brought back in 67. So they were looking for volunteers, and you knew you were going to Vietnam. That was the whole purpose of it. And I thought, well, I'd probably end up in Vietnam anyway, so I'd rather go with a unit that was well trained and everything. I moved up kind of quick in rank. I was a hard sergeant in less than a year in the service, 11 months. And I just loved every minute of the service. It just seemed to click. We trained for 7 months together, and I was a squad leader, and we were not attached to the 101st. We were the only unit not attached. We were sent wherever there were problems. General Westmoreland, or whoever the generals were back, you know, who we had, or where there was a problem somewhere in the country, we were gone. We set the record of 72 straight days in the jungle without a shower, which was quite an honor. You really love creeks after a while and things like that. We were sent during Tet Offensive of 68 to Phan Thiet. It's on the coast of, stand up, point out. Can you stand, show them where Phan Thiet is, my friend? You, with the map. Come on, stand up. That was actually a turn around. We won't hold that.
And you know, I grew up in Zuki Lake, Zuki Tavern. Right next to Hickney.
I live 2 miles from there.
Yeah.
I got a picture of me at 5 years old sitting on the bar with my uncle.
When I went in there, my mother let me row across the boat, across the lake, Zuki Lake, to get at the tavern there. At that time, with one pump out, gas pump on the front there, you know, and the pool table in there, and it brings back a lot of memories. Yeah, amen.
All right, we're just one right here. It was the birthplace of Ho Chi Minh. It was where the, can you still hear me all right? No. All right, I'll get back here. Phan Thiet was the birthplace of Ho Chi Minh. It was where the Communist Party was formed in Vietnam. That's where he taught school. So it was a very sacred type city. When we got there, we were sent there, and when we got there, it was almost like, to me, Ann Arbor. Beautiful buildings, painted. It was just absolutely gorgeous. Right on the ocean. It looked so calm and clean, and China Sea and everything. Tet started about the second week, I think, of January, and it just constantly. We fought building to building. We fought in the fields. We called this one area Disney World because it was just so full of problems, or not really problems, but so full of the Vietnamese or the Viet Cong and traps and everything else. So we did that, and we were sent out across, it was on the 19th of February in '68. We had, our platoon normal platoon should have 42 people in it. We had taken so many casualties, instead of 4 platoons in our company, we formed 3 in our company because we didn't have enough to make a full platoon, and our platoon still only had 23 guys in it. That day we had crossed a river and came upon a graveyard, which sounds pretty normal, and started receiving fire. And we all took cover around the gravestones wherever we could hide, and were given the order to kind of move out. There was choppers and fires, artillery came in and jets came in, and I was in lead platoon and I was point, and I could see movement out in front of us. You got a picture of flat rice paddy with nothing really to hide behind, and I could see on the line of the jungle some Viet Cong, and I turned around to stop everybody, and I couldn't figure out why everybody was running. Well, somebody gave the order to get them. Kind of all hell broke loose then. My first hit was in my leg, and which pretty much brought me down to the ground. I could see in front of me at least 5 or 6 guys that to me looked like it was too late to help them. So this whole thing lasted about 45 minutes. I ended up being shot 4 different times in that 45 minutes. I have half an ear, leg. I don't have use of this hand, and but anyway, and actually the one that hurt the worst was in the ass. It burned. I think there was no nerve damage, so it hurt. Anyway, so this one young Don Marshall, who was just a wonderful guy from Hawaii, ran out and tied a tourniquet on my arm and was hit. And his last words were, "I don't think we're going to make it, but if you do, tell my mom I love her." It was his last thing he was concerned about, was his mom. It took me, of course, you get back and you're busy and you're trying to raise a family and, work and everything else. It took me 30 years to find his mom. She had a different last name than he did when he was in the service, lived in Hawaii, and married 2 more times. So finally I put an ad in the paper in Hawaii. I went over there twice, visited his grave, and left messages and stuff. But I put an ad in the Hawaii paper. On the 19th of February, 2001, I got a call from his brother. And his mom was still alive. I got to talk to her. And I felt very good, I wanted to find the 4 or 5 guys that I knew had died that day. And ended up, it was out of our 23, 17 lost their life. I didn't start looking till about 30 years after Vietnam, probably 96. And I would send flowers every Memorial Day. And I finally went, I did not go to a reunion or no connection with anything military until I went to a reunion in '99. When I applied for jobs, you were told not to put down that you were a Vietnam veteran. You know, I tried to get back at General Motors to go to work, and they said, "Oh, it'll probably be 2 years before we can find you a job." Anyway, I finally got out of the hospital 20 months in the hospital. And I was, they had, back then, they had on-the-job training. And I was at Fitzsimmons Army Hospital, and there was nothing for veterans or nothing for patients to do. So I got talking to a guy, this major, and we set up a program. I have a nice letter from the Army to get jobs for veterans, or for when they got released, or jobs in the hospitals instead of laying in bed. And one of my opportunities were that I could be a car salesman or a drapery salesman. Now, at 22, somehow I could not imagine myself selling drapes. And I was always a car guy and stuff. And so I went through training at a dealership in Denver, Colorado. One of my great stories from there, I had to go in every day with a suit and everything. And but I ended up washing cars or doing every crap job that was needed and everything for no pay on stuff. But I got to learn how to sell cars, and one of my crap jobs was once in a while I had to go pick people up that wanted to buy a car. And got a call one day. I was called into the office. Oh, there's some lady down at the hotel down here that wants to buy a car. And so they sent me down to pick her up, and they said, "You can just sell her a car." And I picked this lady up, and she has an older lady with her, and I'm going, I know this lady. I know who's this? I know her. I'm going, Jane Fonda. I still have her credit app. I couldn't finance her, but we did. She had to end up putting first American Express card I ever saw. She put it on her American Express card. And so she bought a car for protesters against the Vietnam War. So it was a old Plymouth station wagon. And she wanted me to go with her so she could get on bases. I couldn't have the heart to do that. I did last year have the opportunity to have, we were supposed to have the opportunity. It's coming up now this later year. I'm having lunch with her. I've been on the board of directors of Jeff Daniels' theater in Chelsea, the Purple Rose Theater, for 22 years now. And she was on a program, whether it was at the newsroom together and everything, and she's coming to do some stuff with Jeff and Chelsea. So that was a promise I had that we would be having dinner together. So anyway, get rid of that. After my stay in the hospital, I went on and started to sell cars and stuff, and ended up, I loved it. It was very good, everything. In life, I ended up, I bought a little Chrysler dealership in my hometown. He had sold 7 cars in '77. And I got, for $60,000, I got a gas station, a 1-car showroom, and 2 gas pumps. After the once I got the pumps out of there was room for 4 cars. About a year later, I was keeping 60 to 70 cars at my house on 6 acres. I try to do that today. And when I sold the dealership in a little town of Pinckney, my planning volume was 383 cars a year, and I was the 3rd largest volume dealer in the state, doing just over 1,900. So taking care of people is what, I don't know, I just always believed in. And that brought me to the Flower Fund. Back in '96, I started trying to find graves for those guys, and I started sending flowers to their grave sites every Memorial Day. Went to a reunion finally in 2000 and mentioned what I was doing, and some of the folks knew where other graves were and things like that, and we ended up finding, the 17 I was looking for, which I only thought was 4 or 5. I found out that day that there were 17. And so we ended up working together. At that reunion in '99, you saw his name was Curtis Washington. He came into the room. We were all watching videos or CDs. We all look strong and tough and, hell of a lot better looking. And, but he came in and was looking for Doc. He kept hollering, Doc, are you up? And it was Doc Lovey who actually pronounced me dead. And they hugged and kissed and everything, and I didn't know who the heck the guy was. And Doc brought him over to me and said, now this story differs from their story. Doc brought him over to me, and the guy picks me, he said, this is Colone, this is John Colone. And I didn't know who he was. He picks me up and turning me around and kissing me and everything else and said, you made it. And I'm going, I don't know what the hell you're talking about. And he says, I'm the one who found you in a body bag. And I knew nothing about it, but what I did remember was it was very dark, and I could not imagine. All I imagined was I rolled off a pile of logs. Now, I wrote a letter to my daughter when she was going from 8th grade to 9th grade. The minister at the church or priest said, it's a very important time for your child going from 8th grade to high school, and you should something to really make them feel. And I wrote, and I said, I really feel you had something to do to bring me back from Vietnam. Okay. Now, at the time, I got to Vietnam in October, and in September and January, I got a letter from my girlfriend saying, guess what? So by the time I got back, 38 days after we were married, we had a daughter. And it was our daughter, Laura. Anyway, she grew up and graduated from high school, went on to Milder Dame, and from there to med school. And she sent me this, I hope every dad in the world could get a letter like this, just saying, Dad, I know you got kicked out of the college, but you've always worked hard. You've always looked after everybody else. And she said, I just wanted to thank you so much. I don't have any education bills. My sister has no education bills or anything. And here's a picture of me on my first day of my residency. Now, in that letter that I wrote her, I said, all I remember was that it was really dark, and I rolled off a pile of logs, and this woman, I said it was a young girl, and she had a white coat on. It was not a flowing gown, and she had a silver medallion hanging around her neck. And she held up her hand and said, no, not yet. I said that long before I knew anything, about a body bag. Well, that little girl in the picture that came with the letter was this girl in a white doctor's coat and a stethoscope hanging around her neck, a silver medallion. And I was home alone, and I cried like a baby. I just could not believe what the memories it brought back and everything. So anyway, we're back to the flower fund. After finding those, we've, different guys, I was spending between $8,000 and $9,000 a year sending flowers. We found all 179 grave sites of all the guys that served in the 3rd of the 506 who lost their lives in Vietnam. I was sending flowers to all of them, and the guys started adopting them. He said, well, he was my friend. I'll pay for this one. I'll do this. I'll deliver flowers. Now we're working on all the other 101st Airborne. CBS called or tracked me down and wanted to know about the story and what we're doing. And this was my 16th year. We always go to the wall on February 19th to be with those guys. They're all on 41 West, pretty much all grouped together. And we pay tribute to other guys that, that we know what panel they're on and stuff. But the whole idea was to get people to adopt a veteran's grave and make sure that it's taken care of on Memorial Day. We have had tons of requests to send money. People have asked who can we donate to. I won't take a dime. We want it to be your responsibility. We want you to get church groups involved, Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, things like that, to go to your local cemeteries and make sure things are clean, and make sure there's flowers on Memorial Day on a veteran's grave. I just been corresponding with a wonderful gentleman. He's 61 years old. Was with artillery unit in Vietnam, and he's from Texas. And he said he was just so amazed by the article and everything. He went out to look for it, and he says, I pass this beat-up old cemetery every day on my way to work. He's a retired fireman now. And he said, I went out there with a weed whacker and he said some of the weeds were waist high, and found out it was a Revolutionary War cemetery that had been just neglected for years. And he sent me a picture where, now he's got 6 guys helping him. And, they've got lawnmowers in there now and cleaning up everything. And he says, John, I haven't forgot about a Vietnam veteran yet, but this was something we just felt we wanted to do, to take care of this grave sites back from the Revolutionary War. We've done different things to, a lot of times when one of our guys lose their life, or pass now, we've had as many as 20 people from across the country be there with the family and everything. We always make sure that we all have a last drink together. Dozier, who we lost 2 years ago, it was a black gentleman. You'd swear his knuckles were dragged in the ground. He actually had played for tryouts with the Washington football team. What is it? Not the Senators, but whatever the Washington pro football team is. But he lost his life about 2 years ago, and we came from all around the country to go to Virginia. And there was, we know, and he spent 2 years in the VA hospital in Virginia, and we'd go visit him, and the first thing he wanted was a smoke and some bourbon. So we always snuck the bourbon in and the smoke. And when we all did a little ceremony, bought a bottle of bourbon, had our last drink with him, and tucked it away in the casket with him. And first time I had a cigarette since I was a teenager. So we shared, the 13 of us shared a cigarette with him and put it in his fingers and things like that. But it's important. It's not just the Vietnam vet. It's all of them. Today's veterans, what are we doing? Losing 22 a day of Afghanistan and Iraq just due to suicide. I just read a report. I'm the head of our county's Veterans Affairs Department. And it's just, it's sad what goes on. We've been very fortunate in our community. We able to save our Veterans Service Department, and in August we just got the community okayed a $1.4 million tax raise to help veterans. So we hope it'll stay for quite a while. We're going to build a home, an apartment, temporary housing for veterans and stuff. And a few years ago, they tried to dissolve the whole thing. They said they had no money to support the veterans anymore. So that's kind of it in a nutshell. Does anybody got any questions or anything? Or